Thousands of Iranians filled Revolution Square in Tehran on Wednesday for a vibrant farewell ceremony as the national football team prepares to depart for the 2026 World Cup. Footage showed fans waving flags and cheering as players took to the stage. Supporters urged the squad to play with courage and pride, with many calling for a powerful rendition of the national anthem. The team will train in Turkey before heading to the United States for the group stages despite diplomatic tensions. Earlier, President Donald Trump questioned Iran's participation, comments the Iranian Football Federation condemned as politicizing sport. FIFA has confirmed Iran will play all its Group G matches on American soil.
All of them, or the majority, are on the continent.
Rwandan President Paul Kagame has called on African nations to harness their vast resources and reject partnerships that undermine the continent's economic sovereignty. Speaking at the Africa CEO Forum in Kigali on Thursday, Kagame said Africa holds immense energy, mineral, and human capital, yet continues to lose much of it cheaply to foreign powers. He urged leaders to develop the courage to say no to exploitative deals and treat global geopolitical tensions as a wake-up call for independence. The two-day forum, themed Scale or Fail, Why Africa Must Embrace Shared Ownership, has brought together heads of state and over 2,000 business leaders from 75 countries.
Of the crisis around the world.
Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has urged African nations to prioritize direct trade through a continental commodity exchange platform rather than focusing immediately on monetary union. Speaking at the Africa CEO Forum in Kigali on Thursday, Tinubu said Africa's 54 countries all have commodities to offer and should leverage that strength. He highlighted efforts to reduce reliance on the dollar in energy transactions, defending government support for the Dangote refinery, which now supplies 70% of Nigeria's fuel needs. Gabonese President Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema also called on African states to resist exporting raw materials without local processing, stressing the need to retain value on the continent. The annual forum themed Scale or Fail, Why Africa Must Embrace Shared Ownership has drawn over 2,000 business leaders and heads of state from 75 countries. Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov held talks with Cuban counterpart Bruno Rodriguez in Havana on Wednesday, underscoring the close relationship between the two countries. Footage showed the ministers greeting each other warmly as Lavrov joked about his crazy schedule of diplomatic meetings. The visit comes as Russia seeks to deepen cooperation with Latin American partners amid global tensions and Western sanctions. Officials say discussions focused on strengthening bilateral ties, economic collaboration, and coordination on international issues. The meeting reflects Moscow's continued push to expand alliances beyond Europe and the United States. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping held their second round of talks Friday at the Zhongnanhai residence, marking the final day of Trump's visit to Beijing, the first by a U.S. president since 2017. Trump said the two discussed Iran, noting they feel very similar and want the conflict to end. He thanked Xi for the hospitality and confirmed a reciprocal visit to the United States on September 24. The more personal head-to-head followed Thursday's expanded talks, where Xi warned mishandling Taiwan could spark clashes and cautioned against the so-called Thucydides trap, a rising power colliding with an established one. Trump departs Beijing later on Friday, heading back to Washington after a state banquet and high-level meetings aimed at reshaping U.S.-China relations. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has repeated his call for the permanent annexation of the West Bank, speaking at a Jerusalem Day rally on Friday. Addressing crowds at the Mecca's Harav Yeshiva, Smotrich said it was time to erase the divisions between areas A, B and C, announcing he had submitted a detailed annexation plan to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. His remarks follow new EU sanctions against Israeli settler groups accused of violence against Palestinians and Hungary's decision to lift its veto, paving the way for broader measures. Smotrich's push comes despite strong opposition from Washington, with President Trump insisting he will not allow annexation to proceed. Lebanese and Israeli delegations left the U.S. State Department on Thursday after a full day of talks aimed at halting the war along their shared border. Footage showed delegations departing in blacked-out vehicles. U.S. officials described the session as productive and positive, with both sides set to return before a fragile ceasefire expires Sunday. The talks, the highest-level contact indicates, followed deadly Israeli strikes that Lebanon says killed 22 people, including 8 children. Israel insists it is targeting Hezbollah fighters as the group continues rocket and drone attacks. Lebanon is pressing for a lasting ceasefire and Israeli withdrawal, while Israel demands Hezbollah's disarmament and stronger border security. Nearly 2,900 people have been killed in Lebanon since fighting fled in March, with over 1 million displaced. Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov has accused Germany of reviving Nazism in Europe while calling Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a Führer. Speaking on Thursday, Lavrov claimed Berlin was driving Europe into dangerous territory and alleged that Ukraine's leadership was complicit in this trend. His comments come amid escalating tensions between Moscow and Western capitals over the war in Ukraine. The remarks drew sharp criticism from European officials who dismissed them as inflammatory propaganda. Germany has repeatedly condemned Russia's invasion, while Zelensky continues to rally international support against Moscow's military campaign. Russia and Ukraine have exchanged the bodies of dead servicemen in the latest humanitarian handover amid the ongoing war. Footage showed solemn scenes as the remains of fallen soldiers were returned to their respective sites, marking a rare moment of cooperation between the two countries. The exchange follows a recent prisoner swaps and comes as fighting continues across eastern Ukraine, with both nations acknowledging the heavy human cost of the conflict. Officials say the operation was coordinated to ensure dignity for the deceased and closure for their families, even as hostilities persist. Colombia's National Registry of the Civil Status carried out a simulation on Thursday to demonstrate how votes will be processed and counted during the upcoming presidential election on May 31. Footage showed officials filling out ballots and reviewing procedures as authorities work to reassure the public amid security concerns in some regions. Delegated Registrar James Suarez Bayona pledged transparent and free elections, noting security forces will accompany polling day. Electoral Director Rafael Vargas confirmed more than 41 million Colombians are eligible to vote across 4,489 polling stations nationwide and 253 abroad. After polls close at 4 p.m., juries will conduct a preliminary count with final verification handled by the courts. Thousands of miners marched through the center of La Paz on Thursday, demanding the resignation of President Rodrigo Arce amid Bolivia's deepening economic crisis. Footage showed protesters clashing with police and throwing explosives, while officers responded with tear gas. Members of the Federation of Mining Cooperatives led the mobilization, accusing the government of ignoring their demands for fuel, mining expansion, explosives, and access to dollars. The unrest comes after weeks of protests by workers, teachers, peasants, and transporters over salaries, fuel supplies, and fears of privatization. Government officials insist President Baz will not resign, denouncing attempts at destabilization and ordering security forces to clear roadblocks.